Ciryl gone? But I thought he just got here. Welcome to another episode of Game Theory, the #1 DraftKings prep show in the land. I am your host, Monk, aka the Monkmatician, and in this very episode, we are going to be breaking down all fighters fighting at UFC 270, headlined with two title fights, Moreno against Figueiredo and Ciryl Gane versus Francis Ngannou. So real quick, let's just get into it. Last week did pretty well in DraftKings, had a 169% ROI, so really good for the first card of the year. Hoping to keep that rolling here. Let's go ahead and give you all the information you need. And before we get started, please check out Team riseorfall.com. If you play any kind of DFS of any sport, get over there. There are tons of experts in the Discord constantly, 24 hours a day, talking DFS. So please get over there, use code MONK for $10 off. Let's go ahead and get started. First fight of the night, Hansen. Where are we here? Going against Jasmine Jasudavicius. Nailed it. Hansen. This is going to be a strawweight fight, or flyweight fight, excuse me. Hansen, 5'2", 63-inch reach, going against Jasmine Jasudavicius, 5'7", 68-inch reach, and 10 years older than Hansen. 7-4 professionally, 1-1 in the UFC. Jasmine, 6-1 professionally, has never fought in the UFC. This is a common pattern for our $75 pay-per-view. 10 out of 26 fighters have never had a UFC win. That's like 38.5%. It's pretty ridiculous. So, Hansen coming in $8,800, right at her average salary. Her average value, 7.25. She does score pretty well, 3.04 raw DraftKings points per minute. That is DraftKings points with the bonus points stripped out. So pretty much a work rate number. She has a differential of 0.71 over her opponent. She only averages 77.9 points per win and gives up 83 in a loss. She has a very low ceiling, but a very high floor. So this could be a cash play, but she is $8,800. That is just too much for these numbers that I'm getting here. Jasmine, 7,400. Ceiling and floor numbers are just based on the weight class because obviously she has no UFC fights, so I don't have too much data for her. Hansen, her one win came via submission. I believe it was an armbar second round. I'm not sure though. Maybe third. 78 points there, and she gave up the 83 in a decision loss. She has never obviously scored over 90 and never given up over 90. Most of her game, a good part of her, well, that's not true either. Half of her game is striking points, and the other half seems to be takedown and control time, so she's pretty good everywhere for the most part. You're going to have to do your tape on Jasmine Jasudavicius because I just don't have any stats for her. I fade DWCS fighters like it's, I was going to say like it's candy, but that doesn't make sense. I fade them a lot, and for good reason. I don't know about this one. This one could be a close fight. I mean, Hansen could come out and just, dominate Jasmine for 3 rounds. Like we tend to see with Dana White Contender Series fighters, but I think Jasmine has a little bit more skill than your average DWCS fighter. So we will have to do tape on that one. Hansen, most of her points when she wins comes via grappling, and then 45 bonus points. Only gave up 30 bonus points in her loss. Gave up a ton of striking points though, 39.4 in her loss to Corey McKenna. So there you go there. Here are some relevant stats, just a few stats here that I handpicked to show you for the DK stuff, since it's not really DraftKings related. And then the strength of schedule. Hansen 3-2 in her last 5 professional fights. Jasmine 4-1. With the much better strength of schedule here. Jasmine's is pretty bad. You want these numbers to be about 70, 75. That would be a good strength of schedule, which we do have a ton of those on the card, but then a few bad ones as well. Last 5 fight statistics. In the UFC, like we said, Hansen 1-1 with a win over Unifier, round 3 sub. So she did not score too well in that, and pretty much whooped her ass though all around. Raw DraftKings data. This is just a graph for DraftKings data over the last 5. And K is trending up, but so are her opponents at a bit of a steeper rate. but she does have that raw DraftKings points per minute advantage over them. Let's see here. Here are my projections. Go ahead and, yeah, whatever you think is going to happen, here's how I think that will score. Pretty low projections, obviously, from both of these women. In fact, Jasmine's projections are just based on weight class and then her opponent, because obviously we have no stats for her. So, okay, Hansen, pretty decent graph here, but there's only, you know, we're not comparing it to anyone, so take that for what it's worth. And then the finish rate, I do not think this one is going to finish inside the distance. Here's their finishing rates in their career, wins and losses, and then the UFC as well. So that is going to be the first fight of the night. Next, and I am going off of Big Marcel Dorf. I think it's at Big Marcel 24 on Twitter. If you don't know who that is, give him a follow. I'm sure all of you do. But he's constantly breaking fights, giving us the fight orders, all kinds of stuff. Seems like a really good dude in the space. So much respect to Big Marcel. But that is where I'm getting my bout order from. So I'm sure this will change. But yeah, here we go. Matt Frevola going against Gennaro Valdez from Mexico. I believe he trains out of Entrum, yeah, with Brandon Moreno, a couple of Entrum fighters on this card. This is going to be a lightweight fight. Frevola, last time we saw him got knocked out by, Terrence McKinney. So it's been quite a while, 7 months or so, that 7-second knockout. Frevola 2-3-1 in the UFC. Valdez, no UFC fights, so we won't spend too much time on him. Frevola, $8,700 salary. His average salary is $7,900, so he's $800 more than that. Average value in 6 fights is only 4.63. Terrible. 15th out of what? 15 that are ranked. So yeah, the lowest possible value while being ranked. Raw DraftKings points per minute, only 2.62, gives up 420 per minute. That is a huge negative differential. Only scores 80 points when he wins, gives up 131 when he loses. I mean, he's got a terrible ceiling and a 0 floor, the lowest floor on the card. My God. Valdez, 7,500 salary here. Not much else to say. He is a finisher. He's 10-0 professionally. 7 knockouts, 3 subs. So he's finished all 10 of his fights. Frevola, I don't think he's going to lose this one, but Frevola gets finished, man. I mean, not a ton. Only 2 finishes in his career, but recently not looked great. Averages 85.2 points in a decision win, 74 in a split. He got knocked out by McKinney, 134.6 points, and 125 he gives up when he loses by decision. So Matt Frevola gives up points very consistently, a lot of them as well. In fact, all 3 of his fights, his opponents have scored over 110 DraftKings points. Excuse me, all 3 of his losses in the UFC. 110 DraftKings points. Insane. Scores pretty well striking, has a good takedown number, 0.82 DraftKings points per minute in takedowns. And actually the most reversal points per minute on the card as well. So he gives up a ton of striking points, knockout points, takedown. I mean, he gives up points everywhere. Everywhere. I mean, look at this. His average bonus points given up in 3 losses is 86. Almost 87. And only, he doesn't finish any UFC fights. He's only won by decision. Now, that could very well change this Saturday. We will have to see. Few relevant fight stats. These ranks are not concrete, as I say every week. It's just more for me to reference while I'm babbling about fights here. So a few stats for you. What do we got here? Frevola with decent takedown or significant striking defense. He's getting outstruck by almost a strike per minute. Half a takedown per 15 differential, negative. Does not control majority of the grappling time. Gets out grappled. His grapple ratio is below 1. He has a very good strength of schedule though. 76.9% opponent win percentage, 75 strength of schedule. 85 strength of defeat. Meanwhile, Gennaro Valdez, very low numbers here. And here's how Frevola has fought in his last 5, 2-2-1. With wins over Turner and Pena, both decisions. Then a loss to Sarukian and a knockout from McKinney. And McKinney's just ruined his entire graph right here, so you can't even really see what's going on. Projections, very low for Frevola in a decision. We will just have to see how that plays out. I do have this one finishing inside the distance based on these numbers here. Majority of their wins, losses in the UFC and otherwise have been finishes rather. So I do lean finish in this one. Next fight, and I spelled it wrong, so close. Vanessa Demopoulos going against Silvana Gomez Juarez. I feel like I've broken this fight down 15 fucking times in the past, month and a half. But here we are again. Let's see. Strawweight fight, this one. Both women 0-1 in the UFC. Gomez Juarez training out of Entrim Gym. Demopoulos 8,300, coming in 1,200 more than her average salary. She only scores 2.32 DraftKings points per minute. Gets outscored by 1.4 points per minute. No wins, gave up 85 points in her loss. Has a very low ceiling and a decently high floor, but that floor is just her score from the first fight, her losing score from the first fight. Floors don't get calculated until I have at least 2 fights, so I can have some sort of standard deviation. Other than that, it's just the straight up loss from last time. Gomez Juarez 7,900, coming in $300 more than her last fight. 0.28 raw DraftKings points per minute. She got 8.75 points on her scored per minute. That is freaking insane, and it's going to completely throw off the projections at the end. But just keep that in mind. I mean, she got smoked by Godinez in, I think, the first round in her last fight. Demopoulos, like we said, 85 points in a decision loss. 127 for Gomez Juarez in a sub loss. So neither one scoring well here, obviously, in their losses. Very low numbers. Demopoulos, her opponent's striking points per minute in that first fight, 2.85. She was just getting pieced up. She also got controlled pretty well, and a couple of takedowns landed on her, it looks like. Meanwhile, Juarez, oh my God. Godinez put up 5.91 takedown points per minute on her. So that should be interesting. Here are the one fight numbers as far as scoring goes. And then a couple of relevant statistics here. Gomez Juarez obviously got worked over much worse than Demopoulos got worked over in her fight. So that's why you see all the red on the right side. Strength of schedule, Demopoulos 2-3 in her last 5. Gomez Juarez 3-2 in her last 5, but with a much, much worse strength of schedule here, as you can see in the last fight 5 statistics. This is just UFC fights. Tons of negatives across the board here for both fighters. I mean, Demopoulos got kind of handled by Aldrich, and then Godinez finished Gomez Juarez, as we said, with a first round sub. So the graphs we can skip because only one fight. And here are the projections. There's no way that I think Vanessa Demopoulos will score 112 points in a decision. I don't think she's going to be anywhere near 100 points, even with a finish, unless it's something crazy in the first round. But as we said, Gomez Juarez did give up 8.75 points a minute last time, so that is playing a part in these projections. So I'd take these down by 30%, 35%. I mean, she's not going to give up 8 points a minute again. So take that with what you will. Here are the aggregate finish rates, wins and losses here. I do not expect this to finish inside the distance. So there we go. 3 fights down. And it does feel like I'm going pretty quick, but that's, like I said, in the first, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fights, only one of the fighters has ever had a UFC fight, so it's going to be pretty quick. And here's another one. Trevin Giles, welterweight fight, going against Michael Morales, newcomer here. Trevin Giles 5-3 in the UFC. He's got 11 professional wins by knockout or by finish. Been finished 3 times. Morales, no UFC fights. He is 12-0 professionally with 9 knockout wins and 1 sub win. Let's get into it. Giles, $8,000, $450 cheaper than his average salary, and you do get a positive DraftKings points differential from that. 2.65 points per minute against 2.3 given up per minute. He does not score very well in his wins, though. 5 wins, only 85.2 points. That is the 12th highest on the card. So a lot of, 11 fighters coming in better than that. He does not give up a lot of points, though. 85.37, that is 6th highest. A decent ceiling, top 10, and a very low floor here. Average value just under 7 for his 8 fights. Michael Morales, I mean, he's 8,200. Ceiling floor, we already talked about that. Let's see. When Giles wins by knockout, he scores over 100. When he gets knocked out, he gives up 108. He only scores 51 points in his decision, 73 in a split. Only gave up 74 when he got subbed, though. So not giving up a ton of points other than that knockout. Let's see. 2 of Giles' 5 wins, he scored over 90. One of them he scored over 110, and he has given up over 100 points only 1 time. Scores decently well, top 10 per category across the board, except for takedowns, we're at 11. Does not give up a ton of points. He, knockout points given up, takedown points. He does get taken down and controlled, and also reversed, so he does give up a few points that way. As you can see here, the grappling points are almost caught up to the striking points, and giving up 44 bonus points scoring 44 bonus points per win, giving up 53 per loss, and that's in 3 losses, so he is getting finished in the UFC. Some basic stats here. Has an okay strikes landed per minute, top 10. Top 10 stats, across the board. Strikes landed against only 2.01 per minute. Very good. Has a huge positive differential. You do like to see that 80% takedown accuracy, 75% takedown defense. Now we're getting into some good numbers here. He's controlling almost half the grappling time. His grappling time ratio is not where you want it to be, but the strength of schedule is better than we have seen in the past few fights. Morales coming in with under 60 across the board here in his last 5 fights. Meanwhile, Giles closer to 70 and much further above 70 in the strength of victory and strength of defeat. Last 5 fight history and stats. I mean, Giles not looking great. He's got a huge power number, but also a huge Chindex. And Chindex is, you want that to be 0. The higher this number is, the more you've been knocked down. So you'd never want to see a number that high. His last fight, he did lose to Dricus du Plessis. Beat Delice, Lewis, and Kraus, and then lost to Mearshart there, while making very questionable fight IQ decisions in that one especially. So yeah. And move on from that. Raw DraftKings points per minute. Look at this. He's kind of all over the place. Up, down, left, right. He is above his opponents, like we said, 0.35 above his opponents. Trending, actually, he is trending down while his opponents trend up. That du Plessis fight kind of put him on the back foot there. And here are my upcoming projections. I do like Giles to win this fight. Like I said, I'm fading most of the Dana White Contender Series fight. I like this fight to finish inside the distance as well. Would I be surprised if Giles got knocked out? No, not at all. So I will have some Michael Morales. I like him probably more than a lot of the other debutantes, other than maybe Jack Della. Yeah, those 2 I like the most. So I will have some of Morales in this one. But I'm also not sleeping on Giles either. 100% of their pro losses have been by finish. I mean, a good percent of their wins have been by finish, so I'm thinking finish in this one. Let's keep it moving. Ione Barcelos going against Victor Henry. Again, I feel like I've broken this fight down for a month and a half. Same as the Jasmine fight. This shit is getting old, bro. Old. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it, actually. 9,300 Barcelos, 500 more than his average salary. He does score the 2nd highest points per minute on the card at exactly 4 raw DraftKings points per minute. Gives up only 2.15 for a huge 1.85 differential. Average value of 10.36. That is number 2 on the card. Here is a fighter we can back with our money right now. DraftKings points per win, almost 99. Only gives up 62 in his 1 loss. I mean, these are numbers you love to see. Look at this. 117 ceiling, 52 floor. And I know he's only got the 1 loss, so, no standard deviation like I said before. But that is a big number to put up in a loss. And we've got no stats for Henry. He is $6,900. That's what we got. Barcelos, over 100 when he finishes. 79, almost 80 when he wins by decision, so that's not even too bad. 80% of his 5 wins have scored over 90. 3 of them he scored over 100, and 3 of them he scored over 110. Never given up 90 points. So quite the prolific DraftKings scorer here is Barcelos. 2.43 striking points per minute, getting knockdown points, takedown points, control time. I mean, top 5, almost, with the exception of 9 here, we got top 5 numbers across the board for this card. Barcelos does give up a lot of striking points, never been knocked down, hardly been taken down or controlled. So yeah, I would like to see what Victor Henry's going to bring to this fight to stop Barcelos, because I don't think this is the time. I mean, he's averaging 50 bonus points per fight, or per win, excuse me. One of the best rated guys on the card, in my opinion, based on the stats that I've thrown together. Not my opinion, that would be a biased opinion, but, my unbiased PC's opinion. At least it better be unbiased. If it's not, we got fucking problems here. Barcelos, 5.39 significant strikes landed per minute, second on the card, best striking defense on the card. He does get hit at a decent clip, but he's still over a 1 strike a minute differential. Has a 92% takedown defense. Fantastic. Controls 86% of the grappling time. I mean, I could keep going. His strength of schedule is fabulous. Fabulous. Victor Henry, a bit less than fabulous. Ass whooping index for Barcelos, 13.62 in his last fight. I mean, come on. Power index is huge, almost 1. 21% control. I mean, this dude is wrecking shop. I mean, he did get beat by Valiev, but my ass whoop index, which is basically a scoring metric, if you take out round by round, is kind of how it works, just based on stats put together, 6.81. So if this 0 is a draw, so positive number means he won the fight according to the stats. This might be one of the higher AWIs I've seen in a loss. I mean, it was a close fight, and it was a damn good fight, but I think the wrong guy got the nod there. Otherwise, he's dispatched Taha Nurmagomedov, who's also fighting on this card. Joaquin by knockout, subbed Gutierrez. I mean, this guy is a damn good fighter. Look at this. His graph's not even touching his opponents. 4 points per minute to 2.15, trending down slightly while his opponents trend up. But I mean, we're not even close to, there's such a big gap here that this does not matter yet. And here are my projections. Go ahead and take a look at those. I think this one finishes inside the... No, never mind. I take that back. I think this goes to decision. This is probably what I'm looking at right here. Quite honestly, I don't think Victor Henry's the one to get it done against Barcelos. I mean, this is one hell of a welcome gift. And unfortunately for Henry, they keep pushing it back. So now maybe he can get this one done and get on to the next one. Let's see. Whoops. Who's next? Jack Della. What the hell's his last name? Jack Della Maddalena going against Pete Rodriguez. This is going to be the shortest one of them all. Neither of these guys have a UFC fight. I have no DraftKings stats for them. And I also have no salary because DraftKings only put out 11 salaries out of 13. So we don't have the salaries for this fight, and we don't have salaries for the Ilia Topuria Charles Jourdain fight. I don't know why. It's very frustrating. So this is going to be at welterweight. I mean, Jack Della, 10-2 professionally. Pete Rodriguez, whoever the hell this guy is, he has 4 professional fights, and he's fighting in the UFC. Now, I'm not talking shit about Pete. I'm sure he's a fantastic guy. Maybe he's not. I don't know, and I don't really care. But he's only got 4 fights in the UFC. What the fuck are we doing here? All 4 of them ended by knockout. I think one of them was... he basically knocked the guy down and then just connected to like 15 shots to the back of his head until the ref stopped. They were all back of the head shots. That's about the only fight tape I've seen on him. Jack Della, 8 wins by KO, 1 by sub, and he has been finished twice. So, I mean, I have no stats. I have no nothing for these guys. Last 5, strength of schedule. Oh, this is nice. Look at these numbers from Jack Della. Now, usually when guys don't have UFC fights, their last 5 strength of schedule numbers are like 50, 60, which is dog shit. His are 75. He's got a 67, almost 68 strength of schedule, 75 strength of victory. So those are very good numbers for UFC debutants. Now let's take a look over at 23. These are the worst strength of schedule numbers I've ever seen since I've been doing this, and that's been about a year, maybe a little less. 23.5 opponent win percentage for Pete Rodriguez. 23.5%. You know, I made fun of Jake Collier last week. Congratulations, by the way. 46% opponent win percentage in the last 5. I said that was terrible. As you know, god awful. And Pete Rodriguez, though, coming in with the hammer to crush that 46% with a 23.5. He's got a 35 strength of schedule. I mean, hot garbage, dumpster fire, whatever adjective you want to use. Here are my projections. They are the exact same because they're in the same weight class and I have no stats. So I'm going to tell you to put this projection up. Put all these can probably stay. Put the decision projection up here and just don't play Pete Rodriguez. Just don't. I mean, if you're a guy that needs to have some of everybody, that's fine. Put him at 5%. I had like 10% Kroom last week because I was like, oh, Brian Kelleher, who he's going to win, but who knows? He has been knocked out before. That was way too much. So a guy that's 4-0, just don't. Just don't. Ilia Topuria going against Charles Jourdain. Again, no salaries for these guys. It's absolutely insane. Topuria 3-0. He was supposed to fight Movsar Evloev. And I'm kind of glad that fight's not happening. I love both of those guys. I did not want to see them matched up this early. I mean, I do want to see that fight, but I don't want either one of them to lose yet. I don't know why. It's not like I know them. But anyways, so Evloev is out. Charles Jourdain is in. This is going to be a flyweight or featherweight fight, excuse me. Ilia 3-0 in the UFC. Charles 3-1. Ilia with 10 finishes out of 11 fights. 10 out of 11. I mean, this guy, he last whooped Ryan Hall's rolling around ass, which I loved a lot. He's got the best ass whoop index in the featherweight division. A very high power index, perfect chindex here. Charles Jourdain, not looking too bad as far as numbers go. That chindex is a bit high for me. No salaries. Wonk, wonk. Topuria's average, $3,500 or $8,500. What do you get for that? The fourth highest raw DraftKings points per minute on the card, 3.58. His opponents only scored 1.92 against him. You get the best value on the card at 11.29. He's averaging just under 97 points per win. He's got a pretty good ceiling and a pretty decent floor as well, even though he has no losses. So this is just, you know, the standard featherweight floor there. Charles Jourdain scores pretty well himself. Sixth highest number on the card at 3.25. Gives up just under 3 points per minute. Scores the number one highest DraftKings points per win on the card, 109.12 when he wins. Only gives up 88 when he loses. A very high ceiling and a not too great of a floor, I guess. 16th. Decent value, 8. And then the average salary just over $8,100. So Topuria, when he scores a knockout, 106 points. Scores well in decisions. Charles Jourdain, 117 when he wins by knockout. 91 when he wins by decision. That is the highest on the card. So very good score here. Gives up a ton of points when he gets finished, though. Sub-loss. Not too bad in his decisions. Topuria scores over 90 in 2 of his 3 wins. Over 110 in the other one. And Jourdain scored 90 in all 3 and over 110 in both. Only giving up 100 points 1 time. So not too bad there. Both of these guys scoring pretty well. Jourdain, the number 1 striker in the on the card per minute, 2.47 striking points per minute. Ton of knockdown points as well. Not so much any ground time. Gives up a decent amount of ground time as well. And striking points, you know, almost 2 striking points per minute his opponents are scoring on him. So that bodes well for Mr. Topuria. 70 points bonus when he wins. Very good average. 48 for Jourdain and only 35 when he loses. Here are a few relevant fight stats. Topuria looking great. I mean, 100% takedown defense, great striking defense, big differential. You know, 3-to-1 grappling ratio, 75% control time controlled, and much less and fewer numbers for Jourdain. And then Topuria 5-0, obviously, in his last 5. Jourdain 2-2-1. The strength of schedule is pretty close, but I'm giving it to Topuria here, just barely. And then the fight history and stats as we Look at that. Topuria, like I said, Ryan Hall got beat. Damon Jackson got beat. Zalal got beat. All of them by quite a bit. I mean, these fights have not been close. Jourdain smashed Andre Ewell. Finished him with the Spartan kick. Not finished, but finished the fight with a little Spartan kick on the last one. Lost to Erosa and Feely. Draw against Kulibao. So Topuria trending way up, while his opponents trend up a little bit here. And Jourdain trending just a bit down while... Actually, no. Jourdain is trending up while his opponents are trending slightly down. Here are my projections. I do think this one finishes inside the distance. And then the DraftKings visual recap. Look at here. Win percentage way above. Finish win percentage about the same, actually. And Jourdain actually poking out with the DraftKings points per win and some striking points here. Average value, I mean, so I don't think he's going to win this fight. I don't think it's necessarily going to be that close. I just think Topuria is the real deal. But Jourdain is no slouch. And here are those finish numbers that make me think that this one's going to end in a finish. Let's go back up. Tony Gravely, we are killing the time right now, you guys. But mostly that is because the UFC doesn't want to give us any fighters that have actually fought UFC before. And just as I say that, Tony Gravely going against Simon Oliveira. Another Dana White Contender Series guy. This is going to be a bantamweight fight. Let's see. Oliveira is actually 5 months older than Gravely, who is 2-2 in the UFC. Let's see. He's got 12 wins out of his 21 pro wins by finish, and he has been finished 6 times, 5 losses by submission. Yeesh. It's going to be a tough one here because you look on the other side. Oliveira has 11 wins by submission, 5 wins by knockout. He's finished 16 of 18 wins in his pro career. We'll have to look at that strength of schedule. Tony Gravely, $8,900. He did make the optimal lineup in one of his 2 fights last year, so that is promising. Just $25 more than his average salary. Average value of 8.22, 10th best on the card. He scores the most DraftKings points per minute. So you like to see that with the high salary. 4.61, but he's getting outscored by 0.15 points a minute. And he scores the most on the card. 3rd highest DKP per win at 105. Gives up a ton in a loss. 109 points. Has the highest ceiling on the card and the 3rd highest floor. So might be a decent cash option as well, but he is a bit expensive. So we'll have to balance that out with somebody further down the lineup. Oliveira, 7,300. We have no stats for him. Gravely, when he wins by knockout, 138. 71 in a split decision. Got knocked out 104, so that's the best number on the card, actually. And gave up 113 points when he is subbed. He has scored over 110 in one of his 2 fights, and he's given up 110 in one of his 2 losses. How does he score? Over 2 points per minute, striking. 0.72 knockdown points per minute, 2nd. He's got the 2nd most takedown points a minute, and the 4th most control time points per minute. So he is a pretty prolific scorer, especially when you match him up against guys on this card. Now, he's not given up a ton of points either, which is huge. Average DraftKings points per win, I mean, looking pretty good. 24 striking points, 31 grappling points, and 50 bonus points. That is a good-looking graph right here. Meanwhile, he's getting out-grappled and out-bonused as well, so not so good on this side. Relevant fight stats, he's got okay numbers, you know. Positive striking differential, that's what we want to see. Negative takedown differential, though. Gets out-controlled at almost a 2-to-1 rate. Does not control even 40% of the grappling time. But he does have a very good strength of schedule. And actually, Simon Oliveira's strength of schedule is not bad. You know, like I said, these are almost 70, 65 for a guy that's never fought in the UFC. You usually do not see numbers like that. They are usually much, much lower. So this one might be tough. I'm picking Gravely, I'm pretty sure. Just like I said, I'm 14 times at this point. I'm fading most of the newcomers on this card. But Gravely with the loss to Manis, that knockout, yeah, that was not a good one for Gravely. Burchek, DeFritas, and then a loss to Johns back in 2020. Gravely trending up while his opponents trend down, and he is currently just under his opponents. Like we said, he does get outscored by that 0.15 points a minute. Here are my projections. I'm thinking this one does finish inside the distance just based on our finish numbers down here, which we cannot see yet. DraftKings visual recap and aggregate career. Now, you can't really take these graphs into consideration unless both guys have stats to offer. On their career, we are getting mad finishes. So I do think this finishes inside the distance. I'm scared about this one, though. I mean, Gravely's going to have to put it on Oliveira, I think. I think a lot of these guys, I don't want to check Tapology again while I'm on recording, but I'm pretty sure a lot of these 16 wins have been in the first and second round. So if Tony Gravely can either put it on Simon first or second round or just survive, I think he's got a good shot here. But yeah, I mean, Simon does not seem to be a guy that you can take lightly. Our old favorite, Rodolfo Vieira, coming back in to fight Wellington Turman. Turman's going to be almost 7 years younger here. Rodolfo, 3-1 in the UFC, 2-3 for Turman now. If you don't know, which I'm sure you do, last year, Rodolfo, you know, not last year, but he's like the jiu-jitsu king of everything right now. And he got subbed by Fluffy Hernandez because he gassed in the first round and then had nothing left. So we are really going to see, I mean, if he's made improvements here. He does have one win by knockout, but most of his wins coming by submission. Has a very good ass whoop index. He is $9,000, which is actually $100 cheaper than his average salary. He scores very well, 3.95 DraftKings points per minute. Only gives up 2.44 for a huge differential. Huge value you get out of Rodolfo Vieira as well. 9.02, scores just under 99 points per win and gives up 94 in a loss. 10th highest ceiling and a decent floor, but that is just, you know, only one loss. We've talked about that. Wellington Turman on the other side. I mean, so we do have good numbers here from Vieira, $9,000 salary. So it seems like those, you know, he might be worth that salary, especially against a guy, Wellington Turman, if Rodolfo does not gas out. That's the key. Turman scores 2.77 points per minute, 11th best on the card, gets outscored by 0.05 points. He is $600 cheaper than his average salary, which is already the second lowest on the card. And the value of only 5.37. He scores in 2 UFC wins, 73.7 DraftKings points, gives up just under 100, has an awful ceiling. In fact, the lowest ceiling on the entire card, and also a very low floor. So definitely do not like Wellington for cash with that floor. I really don't like Wellington in this fight all around, but you know, with the way Vieira gasses, you can't just X out Turman here. Rodolfo, 98 points when he wins by sub, 93 when he lost. Turman, about 74 points when he loses by decision, or when he gets a decision, rather, decision win. And when he loses by knockout, 109 points given up. Rodolfo has scored over 100 in 2 of his 3 wins. Turman has never even scored 90, and he's given up over 110 in 1 of 3 losses. Striking points, terrible for both guys. Knockdown points, non-existent. Takedown points, number 1 for Vieira. I keep calling him Rivera. Number 1 at 1.92 takedown points per minute, as the 0.78 control time points per minute, which is also first on this card. And Turman gives up no takedowns and not much control time. So this one could be interesting. We'll see if Rodolfo can actually get Turman to the ground. If he can, I don't think this is going to be that difficult for Vieira. If he can't, that's another story. I mean, look what we got here. Only 9 striking points per win. Grappling points are very good and almost 70 bonus points per win. Giving up 70 when he loses, but so does Turman. Here are some relevant fight stats. Vieira 4-1 in his last 5 with a tremendous strength of schedule. I mean, 75.68 is his worst number, and that's a damn good number. Wellington Turman, 70, under 70 in most of these categories. We'll just call it 70. So decent, but not great. And then some stats from the last 5. a few negatives, but Vieira 5.77 takedowns per 15 differential, almost 40% control time diff. I mean, he's got an ass whip index of 15.39. That's a huge number. Subbed Stoltzfus, lost to Fluffy, subbed Safarov, and subbed Pichota. Turman with losses to Bruno Silva, Sanchez, and Roberson beat Sam Alvey in a split decision. Sam Alvey. And he barely won that fight, even according to the ass whip index. I think Rodolfo smashes him here. He should. He should smash him. I mean, his raw DraftKings points way above his opponent. Meanwhile, trending down is Wellington Turman. Projections for the fight. There you go right here. I think this one. Around 104. DraftKings visual recap. I mean, look at all of this real estate for Vieira compared to Wellington Turman. I mean, Turman has no finish wins, so he's a huge chunk of his pie taken out. But look at these. I mean, 100%. DraftKings points per win, 98. I mean, he's killing all this whole side. You want to be basically as far out to the edge as you can, and that is huge. Aggregate career finishing percentages here. I do think this one ends inside the distance. I think Rodolfo, I mean, Wellington's never been subbed in 22 fights. So is he like Court McGee level of I've never been subbed? Probably not. And he's going against one of the greatest jiu-jitsu players in, middleweight history, probably, when you really get down to it. So we'll kind of see what happens. Like I said, I'm picking Rodolfo to win here. Said Nurmagomedov, Cody say, I'm telling you, man, someone needs to put together a UFC spelling bee. I would fucking take that shit. I would take it. I can spell I can't say it, but I can spell Jasudavicius. I can spell I can spell it all. Nurmagomedov, that shit just rolls off my fingertips like a fucking like water in a shower, baby. Said going against Cody Stamann. This one's going to be a bantamweight fight. Said 3-1 in the UFC. Cody 5-3-1 in the UFC. Said has some really good numbers here. $8,600 salary. He is $150 more than his average salary. Not a ton of DraftKings points per minute, but he does not give up hardly any. He scores 2.7 and still has a diff of 1.25. Has one of the best values on the card at 9.64. 99.37 DraftKings points per win. Only gives up 63 in his one loss. Sorry, I'm just making sure everything's still copacetic up there. Has a very good ceiling, 121.88, and a pretty good floor too, but only the one loss. Blah, blah, blah. Cody Stamann scores many more points per minute than Nurmagomedov, 3.36 per minute. Only gives up 2.6, also for a positive differential. He is $7,600, which is $400 less than his average salary, almost $450, and his average value is actually okay. 11th highest at 8.05. Doesn't score very well. 83.57 points in his wins, and that's 5 wins. And gives up 94.4 points in his 3 losses. Has a decent ceiling of 107 and a decent floor as well. Said, when he gets a knockout win, 114 points, only 68 when he got a split decision. And his opponents only scored 63.5 when they decision victory over him. Stamann, no finishes in the UFC. Very interesting. 87 points when he finishes, or when he gets a decision win. He has been subbed for 104, and he gets a buttload of points scored. What is this, the 90s? A buttload? The fuck? A shitload of points scored on him when he loses by decision. Let's see here. Said, in 2 of his 3 wins, over 90 points, and one of his, or actually over 100 points. One of his 3 wins, he did score over 110, has never even given up 90. Stamann, on the other hand, has only scored over 90 one time, just once, and he's given up over 100 in 2 of his 3 losses. Said has the 4th highest striking DraftKings points per minute rate on the card at 2.12, and he only gives up just over 1 point per minute. That is incredible. Has decent knockdown points, takedown and control time, not 0, but not too substantial. Stamann scores just under 2 points a minute. He is outstriking his opponents, but just barely as far as DraftKings points go. Has a decent amount of takedown points per minute and control time here. That is something you want to look out for. But as we see, I guess when he loses, his opponents only score 18 points of grappling, worth of grappling on Saeed, who puts up almost 80 points of bonus points in each fight. Meanwhile, Cody giving up 43 per fight. Pretty, I mean, this is a decent little graph here. 26 striking points per fight, 26 grappling points, but he's just not finishing fights, so he's not scoring well. He's just not a finisher. In fact, only 8 of his 19 wins have come by way of finish. Meanwhile, 7 of 14 for Saeed. So neither guy really a huge prolific finisher, but Saeed more than Cody for sure. And then a few overall stats to take a look at here. I mean, Cody has some really good stats compared to Nurmagomedov, but I mean, there's nothing that follows that. That's, I mean, period. Saeed with the better strength of schedule, but Cody's is nothing to sneeze at here. His strength of victory is a bit low, but everything else is right alongside of Nurmagomedov here. Last 5 fight history and stats. Saeed is 3-1, as we said. Cody 2-2-1. Saeed with a huge ass whip index, a nice power index. Neither guy being knocked down in their last 5 fights, or in their last 5 UFC fights. Nurmagomedov lost to Barcelos, who is also on this card, but beat Ramos and it's Ramos. I'm pretty sure he's from Mexico. And then Scoggins, Stamann with losing to Dvalishvili and Rivera. Nothing to sneeze at there. Wins over Kelleher, Perez, and a draw to Song Yudong as well. So Cody's no slouch. Saeed trending way up, his opponent's way under where he's at DraftKings points per minute. And then Cody Stamann way above his opponents as well. He is pretty even keel while his opponents have been trending up as of late, mostly because of that Merab Dvalishvili fight. Upcoming projections. I do think Saeed is going to take this one. He hasn't fought in over a year and 1.25 years, according to my number here. So that is a lot of time to take off. Gosh, I don't know. This could be a good fight. Could be a pretty good fight. I definitely think it goes to decision here. I mean, look at these. Look at this graph. 45% finishes and wins professionally. 16% finishes and losses. Yeah. I'm going Saeed by decision. And at that 8,600, that's a really good price for DraftKings. Next fight, third to last fight. We are flying through this, you guys. What did I do? I spelled it wrong. Right after all that shit I talked about the spelling bee. Michel Pereira going against Andre Fialho. Again, Fialho. I mean, we got a guy that supposedly is on the main card that has no UFC fights. Oh, he beat James Vick. Did you know that? Fuck out of here, James Vick. Ilia Topuria should be in this spot. Third to last fight of the night, but I digress. Anyways, this is our third to last fight as of now. Michel Pereira, 4-2 in the UFC. 26-11 professionally. He does have 17 of those 26 wins have been by finish. He's got a very good ass whip index of 8.23, decent power index, and a perfect chin dex. So very good numbers to start off for Pereira, who comes in at $9,100. What's that? $6,500 more than his average salary. You do get a decent value for that, 8.25. You get the 8th highest work rate on the card at 2.99 raw DraftKings points per minute. He is outscoring his opponent by a whole point plus some per minute, but only 85 points per win. That is unfortunate. He gives up only 69.7 when he loses, and that is 2 losses. So he has a pretty, you want to say pretty good just because it's 100, but that's not the case. The 13th best ceiling on the card, so that is average, but the 5th best floor at 33. So that is something to think about here. Fialho, $7,100, newcomer. I got nothing for him. I mean, you heard me say that he beat James Vick. That's about that. I mean, he's 14-3 professionally. He does have 12 wins by finish of those 14, and he has been finished in 2 of 3 losses as well. DraftKings points scoring by method, 102 points for Pereira when he wins by knockout, 85 when he wins by sub, and 76 in a decision. Let's see, 2 of his 4 wins, he has scored over 90, and he's put up over 100 in one of those. Never given up over 90 points. He's got top 10 scoring numbers across the board here, and very good defensive numbers as well. 8th, only gives up the 8th most points striking and the 8th most control time. He's never been knocked down, and he's never even been taken down. Never been taken down. That is a huge stat right there. Interesting. Pereira scores pretty well. I mean, only 80 some per fight, but he's varying it. 16.5 striking, 20 grappling, and then 48 bonus. That's not terrible. In fact, we have rankings here. Top 10 and top 5 across the board. And then some basic relevant fight statistics. As we said, takedown defense is perfect. He scores over 2 takedowns per 15 minutes at a 62.5% accuracy. He's got almost a 1-strike differential. Very, very good. He controls, almost 1-to-1 grappling time. You'd like to see that a bit better. And then the strength of schedule. Fialho has a decent strength of schedule, again, for a new guy, but Pereira's is just that much better. In his last 5, he's got a good ass whooping index, power, all that stuff. A little low on the control time, but his takedown diffs and his striking diffs are fantastic, as well as his raw DraftKings points per minute. He's got unanimous decision wins over Nico Price, Chaos Williams, a sub win over Imadev, the DQ against Sanchez, and the loss to Tristan Connolly. But as we look at the DraftKings points per minute, he is way above his opponents by over a strike and trending way up as well. Wow, he lost to Connolly when he was a minus 508 favorite. Is that? Yeah. And here are my projections. I do think this one goes the distance. I think Behead is going to get it done here. Again, I'm fading a bunch of these newcomers, as I've said over and over and over again. Next fight, co-main event of the evening. Brandon Moreno, the assassin baby, going against Deiveson Figueiredo, Deus da Guerra, God of War. Where are we at here? 7-2-2 for Moreno, 9-2-1 for Deiveson Figueiredo. I mean, we've got hellacious numbers for both these guys, and I mean that in a good way. A 6.87 ass whoop index, 0.57 power. I mean, we got a 6.08 ass whoop index for Figgy, 1.9, the second highest power index in the flyweight division. Fantastic. Moreno, 8,500, coming in $800 more than his average salary, which is the lowest on the card. Can you believe that? This guy is the champion at flyweight, and until now, he has the lowest average salary on the card. Wow, that's why your value is so high here, 10.17. He scores over 3.1 DraftKings points per minute, gives up only 2.29. So for a differential of 0.81, DraftKings points per win, only 91. But look at this, only gives up 64.7 when he loses, the third highest on, or the third best on the card, I should say. 8th highest ceiling, 7th highest floor. Loving these numbers from Brandon Moreno. Figueiredo on the other side, $7,700 salary. That is $700, almost $800 less than his average salary. You get a great value, 7th best on the card, 9.64. You also get 2.93 DraftKings points per minute. He's outscoring his opponents. You get a few more points than Moreno per win at 98, and you're giving up about 20 more than Moreno gives up in his 2 losses at 84. Very high ceiling and a low floor due to those reasons. Let's keep it moving. DraftKings scoring by method. I mean, Moreno, when he finishes, 120 by knockout, 100 by sub. Not too good in a decision. But this is a 5-round fight, so if it goes 5, I do expect this number to be much, much higher. Closer to this, if not higher. In fact, that's where that came from. That was the split decision, probably from, or no, that was a draw. I'd have to look at that, but anyways, I digress. Figueiredo scores well when he gets a finish as well. 110 in a knockout, 104, almost 105 when he subs, 81 when he wins by decision, and we won't even look at that split decision because it's so fucking terrible. Moreno, let's see, what do we got here? What's my math? I don't know. Doesn't matter. 6, 5. Yeah, 5. 5 wins out of 7, greater than 90. Sorry, it's a bit early right now. Haven't had my caffeine yet. 5 wins out of 7, he has scored over 90. 2 wins out of 7, he scored over 100, and he has put up over 110 once. Figueiredo, 7 of 9 wins over 90, 4 of them over 100, and 3 over 110. So both of these guys are scorers, man, and they're not giving up a ton of points either. Both of these guys are decent scorers, and especially in a 5-round fight. I mean, so obviously Figueiredo has more 5-rounders than Moreno does, but they also have a lot of 3-round fights. So if you strip out the 3-round fights, which I should probably start doing for some of these stats, these numbers are going to be much more elevated than they are now, if that makes sense. I mean, it's obvious, but it's just something you don't really think about. DraftKings points per type. Moreno, 20 points of striking points when he wins, 17 when he of grappling points when he wins, and 55 bonus points. Does not give up hardly any grappling points when he loses. That is something to think about, but he gives up a ton of striking. Excuse me. Figueiredo scoring almost 68 bonus points per win, giving up 37. Oh, I got to get my caffeine somehow. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I'm trying to stay away from like sodas and shit a little bit more, but sometimes you just got to have it, man. Just got to fucking have it. Moreno, pretty good statistically. I mean, his striking accuracy is not really there, but he does have a positive striking differential, a big positive takedown differential, some very good grappling numbers here. 2-to-1, over 2-to-1 ratio. Controls 69% of the grappling time when he's fighting inside the distance. I mean, looking pretty good here. He's got a lot of these numbers better than Figgy. I mean, a lot of them they're very close on, but a lot of red over here for Figueiredo, which just means this doesn't mean he's terrible. It just means that these numbers are not as good as Moreno's. Strength of schedule, 4-0-1 for Moreno in his last 5. Deiveson is 3-1-1. These strength of schedules are 2 of the highest on the card, maybe with the exception of the next fight. But to say that Moreno has a worse strength of schedule than Figueiredo, I guess, is technically true in his last 5. But these are so high. I mean, these would beat any other fighter on the card, maybe with the exception of the next fight. So these strength of schedule numbers for both gentlemen are really, really good. You love to see that. Again, last 5 stats. Brandon Moreno taking the differentials from Deiveson everywhere. In fact, Deiveson is negative differentials in his last 5 fights. Significant strikes, takedowns landed, control time, and work rate. Meanwhile, the ass whip index for Moreno is 8.07, and a pretty good one for Figgy as well. The power index, though, is crazy. 1.33. That chindex, suspect, super sussy, as my kids would say. I'm sorry, I just said that. Now that someone of my age has said that, now all you kids can stop fucking saying it. It's not cool anymore. I know there's tons of kids watching this. You're all into DraftKings. I know it. Moreno, 4-0-1, as we said. Everybody's covered his fights, his last 5. I mean, this guy is, nobody went from nobody talking about him to just boop, 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 and you love to see the story. Couldn't have happened to a better guy. Deiveson, on the other hand, just seems vicious, man. I mean, KO, sub over Benavidez, sub over Perez. I mean, draw over Moreno, and then got subbed, but I think put himself in a bad place before that fight. According to him, he was not focused. So, I mean, that's what a lot of these guys say after you lose a title fight, but man, I think this is going to be a good fight. Here are the raw DraftKings points per minute. Moreno well above his opponents and trending up while they trend down. That is a picture-perfect graph right there. Meanwhile, Deiveson barely over his opponent while his opponents trend up and he trends down. So this is not what you want to see in a graph. Here are my projections. Pretty high for Brandon Moreno here. I think this one goes all 5. I do not think there's a decision or a finish. This is a close one, man. I'm leaning Moreno like 3 rounds to 2 at this point, honestly. And look at these graphs from both guys. These are 2 really good graphs. Should not have taken that drink of Coke there 2 minutes ago. But Figgy, I mean, look, his graphs are pushing out much further, especially on the right side of the graph, which is really where you want to see him. That's just does not bode well for Moreno if he. No, it does bode well for Figgy's score if he wins. How's that? We'll correct what I was about to say there. And then the average aggregate win-loss finish rates here. You know, I don't think this one finishes. I don't. All right. Last fight of the night. We are just over an hour. Hell yeah. Ciryl Gane going against Francis Ngannou. I'm so goddamn excited about this fight. Ciryl 7-0 in the UFC. Francis 11-2. 16 of 16 wins coming by finish for Francis. 7 of 10 wins coming by finish for Ciryl, who has a 13.09 ass whoop index, a decent chin power index, and perfect chin. Francis 14.64 ass whoop index, the number one power index on the card. In the heavyweight division. Nothing you didn't know already at a 4.3. Yeesh. And a perfect chin. Gane 8,400, coming in $800 cheaper than he usually is. You're getting a steal on both of these guys this week, man. He has a 9.93 average value, scores 2.84 DraftKings points per minute, which you're like, okay, top 10, not bad. He gives up 1 DraftKings point per minute. 1. Uno. With a differential of 1.84. I mean, that's ridiculous. 91.47 points per win, has a decent ceiling and a not so good floor. But we're not really thinking about that when we're talking about Ciryl Gane, are we? 7,800 for Francis Ngannou. That is $1,200 lower than his average salary of $9K. Has an average value even better than Gane at 10.07. Is getting outworked. Negative 0.1 points per minute differential. But he scores the second highest number on the card at 105.81 when he wins. Gives up less than 90 when he loses. 5th highest ceiling and one of the lowest floors on the card. DraftKings scoring by method for Ciryl. 97 points when he wins by knockout. 105 when he wins by sub. And even just under 80. Just under 79 when he wins by decision, which is not a bad number. 6th highest on the card. Francis Ngannou has no decision wins in the UFC. 107 points when he wins by knockout. 90.5 when he wins by sub, and 90 when he loses by decision. That's what his opponents are scoring, I should say. Scoring per minute, Ciryl in 4 of 7 fights, he has put up over 90. 2 of 7, he's put up over 100, and 1, he's put up over 110. Never given up over 90 points. He has the 3rd highest striking DraftKings points per minute on the card at 2.26, only giving up 1 point. But wait, didn't you say he only gives up 1 point a minute? Yes, and it's all striking. He's never been knocked down, never been taken down, never even been controlled for even 1 second, and never been reversed. Is Francis going to take him down? Is Francis going to control him? Is Francis going to reverse him? You only have to worry about that number when it comes to Francis. Okay? Who in the doing his own thing here in 10 of 11, or is that 9 of 11? I think that's 10 of 11. Yeah, 10 of 11 wins. He has scored over 90. 63% of his... See how I changed it? Because smart. 63% of his wins have been over 100 DraftKings points, and 36 of them have scored over 110. He's given up 110 points in 1 of his 2 fights. Striking points per minute for Francis, not very many. 15th, I should say. 1.14 per minute. He is getting outpointed in striking, but he makes up for it here. 1.09. How long have I been like off camera? So I'm just going to talk like this from now. I'm like Nick Merckx over here. You can just see my ear, my beard. Francis, 1.09 knockdown points per minute. No takedowns, hardly any control time, blah, blah, blah. He is getting taken down, though. 0.68 points. That's not a huge number, but he's also getting controlled as well. So it's not a huge, but it's not 0. So people can do that to him, is kind of my point. Ciryl Gane, 32.5 striking points per win. He's scoring 48.5 bonus points. So he's not getting a ton of, finishes per se, but the time he's putting in the cage per minute is really paying dividends for his scoring for the most part. Now, Francis, I mean, Jesus Christ, dude. 91.36 bonus points on average. He's got 11 fights. Do you know how many quick win bonuses that is? A couple to make it 91. Plus, you have to get all those first. I mean, he does have 8 first-round finishes. So 8 of his 11 wins are first-round finishes. So that would do it. He does give up a ton of grappling points per loss, 35.59. Very interesting. Something to consider. If you look at what Ciryl did to Derek Lewis, I mean, that was like all control. We can look at it. I was going to say all control time, but anytime he had him up against the cage, or it wasn't Derek Lewis, Derek Lewis, controlled him for less than 1%. 10 times more than that was Ciryl Gane. So, I mean, if he's up against the cage, he's the one that's going to be controlling you. You have to pivot and get your way out of that and try to reset. Otherwise, he's fine just piecing you up against the cage like that. Strength of schedule. This one's going to go Francis here. I mean, 78, 77, 78 here. And we've got very good numbers from Gane as well. 75s across the board. Just a few points less than Ngannou, who has been taking anyone that the UFC throws at him. And it turns out those are very, very tough individuals. Fight history and stats, last 5. I mean, Gane, these numbers are very good. And they're all red. Look at Francis's ass whoop index in the last 5. 102. Now, out of context, this means nothing. But let me give you the context. This is the biggest fucking number I've ever seen in a last 5 fight AWI. This is huge. Now, in individual fights, like Terrence McKinney, 7-second knockout over Frevola. He has a 1,325 ass whoop index for that fight. Because it's measured by minute. He scored all these points in the tiniest window of time, making his number huge. Francis isn't like that. He's got 11 fights. It's not just one 7-second fight. 11 fights. He's how much time? Let's scroll up. 73 minutes. 102.28 ass. I can't explain enough how big this number is. I mean, 10.19 for Ciryl is a very big number for ass whoop index. And this dude is 10 times more than that. I mean, his power index is 7. That might be the highest power index I've ever seen. It's crazy. I mean, look at these knockout wins. Stipe, Rosenstruik, Dos Santos, Velasquez, Blades. Then we've got decision wins and a couple knockouts here as well, but Francis is just fucking people up, man. It's like he's the Mack truck and they're just like a little signpost in the middle of the street. I mean, look at this graph from Ciryl. It's not even touching his opponent. It's not even fucking touching, and he's trending up. Very good. Ngannou, trending up. Not even touching his opponent. This fight is incredible. I'm so excited for this fight. Here are my projections for how I think, or whatever you think is going to happen. Here's how I think it's going to score. So there's that. I personally think I'm leaning Gane by decision here. Visual statistical recap. Here we go. Great graph from Ngannou. Great graph from Gane. I mean, come on, man. What do you guys want? These finish numbers, huge finish numbers outside the UFC and inside the UFC. Neither one has ever been finished in a loss. Super excited for that one. All right, guys. We did it. We got through all 13 fights. Hopefully they're in order. I really have no idea. I'm super stoked for this one. UFC 270 on Saturday. I think it starts at like 5 p.m. I'm not sure. I'm going to make a big old steak, get all even fatter than I already am, and eat that shit right before it starts. And then I'm going to watch amazing fights for the next 6 hours after that. I'm so stoked for these fights, especially the main card. These main 2 fights that we have. I mean, we get Raoni Barcelos as well. We get Ilia Topuria. We get Rodolfo Vieira. Nurmagomedov's fighting again. Said Nurmagomedov. Yeah, I mean, Michael Pereira, who's he going to backflip onto this time? I mean, there's some really good fights going on. So guys, thank you so much for joining me. One more time, please take a look over at teamriserfall.com. Go check out that, again, if you play any kind of DFS, any sport. I mean, they even have esports on there. There are experts, and I do mean experts, who have been winning money at this consistently for years, who are there to give you advice, help you get those lineups in order. Basically what I do, but probably better for other sports. So I choose MMA because it's my favorite sport. It also happens to be one of the easier sports to track for DFS, in my opinion. Thank goodness for that. So if you need some assistance, you get over there. And even if you don't need assistance, you just want to fatten your wallet, get over to teamriserfall.com, use code MONK, and save yourself some money, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I will be on the Wednesday DraftKings show on Pub Sports Radio with DFS by the Numbers, with Uncle Wheezy, with Luke from Sparring with Reality Betting. I will be the fourth on there again. Really looking forward to breaking down fights with them tomorrow night. So be sure to tune in for that. So thanks for spending time with me for this one. Hope you got all your DraftKings study in. And we will see you in the next one. Peace out, guys.